The deaf girl stood frozen at the bustling airport, her small frame nearly swallowed by the crowd of rushing travelers. The constant roar of rolling suitcases, flight announcements, and hurried footsteps swirled around her, creating a chaotic symphony she could never hear. Her eyes darted nervously across the sea of faces, scanning for a familiar one, searching for a clue to make sense of the sudden confusion that had trapped her in this sterile, overwhelming space. She was alone, vulnerable and terrified, but nobody noticed. Nobody ever seemed to notice. Her hands trembled as she raised them slightly, a silent plea for help only visible to those willing to look closely. Her eyes locked on a young girl standing nearby, clutching her mother's hand, but glancing around with curiosity and innocence that adults often lack. The little girl noticed the deaf girl's subtle movements, the shaky, hesitant gestures signaling distress, and something inside her stirred. She tugged gently at her mother's sleeve, pointing at the stranger, but her voice was drowned out by the noise of the crowd. No matter, the little girl decided she would do something anyway. If you believe in kindness and second chances, and the power of noticing those who are unseen, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness. The deaf girl had always lived on the edges of society. Born into a world where sounds were a mystery, she had learned to read lips, mimic expressions, and survive by observing. Airports were always terrifying, so full of hurried people, loud noises, and confusing directions. But today, fear clamped around her chest like a vice. She had been traveling alone, a mix of anxiety and hope driving her forward, carrying the weight of a journey she could not fully explain to anyone. The crowd pressed closer, and she felt the invisible walls of isolation close in around her, suffocating. The little girl's eyes, however, did not waver. She stepped closer to the stranger, tilting her head in a silent gesture of empathy, a simple motion that bridged the gap between silence and understanding. She grabbed a small notebook from her backpack and scribbled something in large, careful letters. "Are you okay?" She held it up for the deaf girl to see. The stranger's eyes widened. In that instant, a flicker of hope ignited inside her, a spark that the world had not entirely forgotten her. She nodded, her fingers trembling as she wrote back a short reply. "Help me." Time seemed to stretch as the little girl's mother finally noticed her daughter's insistence. Curiosity gave way to concern, and she followed the trail of urgent notes, eventually understanding the gravity of the situation. Together, they moved toward the girl, offering calm faces and steady guidance. They navigated the endless corridors, avoiding security personnel and the roar of indifferent travelers, as the deaf girl clutched their hands, her panic slowly ebbing in the warmth of human connection. The airport, once a place of terror, transformed into a stage for human compassion. Strangers watched from afar, witnessing a quiet miracle unfold, a moment where small eyes saw what bigger ones ignored, and a child's courage became the lifeline for someone who had always been invisible. The deaf girl's steps, tentative at first, grew steadier, each stride strengthened by the knowledge that she was no longer alone. The little girl led her to a safe corner, where help could be called without the deaf girl feeling lost or overwhelmed. As the hours passed, the deaf girl shared her story in written notes, revealing a life full of obstacles, moments of rejection, and silent battles against loneliness. Every word etched on paper carried the weight of her isolation, but also a resilient hope that refused to die. The little girl listened, her eyes wide with empathy, never losing focus, never letting the deaf girl's pain go unnoticed. It was a lesson in humanity. That compassion is often quiet, but when given, it echoes louder than any shout. The little girl's mother, moved by the scene, ensured that airport authorities were involved, guiding the deaf girl safely to her intended destination. Tears streamed down faces, unspoken emotions filling the air with a sense of profound relief and gratitude. The deaf girl, once paralyzed by fear and uncertainty, now walked with a newfound sense of courage. She realized that the world might be noisy and indifferent, but amidst the chaos, there could be souls willing to see her, to help her, to care. Slowly, life began to change for her after that day. News of the incident spread online, touching hearts far beyond the walls of the airport. People reached out with letters, messages, and gestures of kindness, inspired by the little girl's bravery and the silent plea that had finally been heard. The deaf girl, who had once felt invisible, discovered that hope and connection were possible even in the most unlikely places. She continued her journey, carrying not just her belongings, but the unspoken promise of a world that could still be gentle and understanding. Before we reach the end, I have a special request. Please leave a comment below telling us about a time someone noticed you when nobody else did. Your story could inspire someone else to act with kindness. If this story touched your heart, if you feel the weight of the deaf girl's journey and the little girl's bravery, please engage with this video. Like, share, and comment, and let the ripple of kindness reach even further. Stories like these remind us that even the smallest actions can create a wave of hope, transforming lives in ways we never imagined.